For years, the officers of the Westbridge Police Department had operated with a sense of invincibility. They believed that they owned the city, and the badge was more than just a badge of authority. It was also a shield, a pass, and a guarantee that whatever took place behind closed doors or on the dark streets would stay within the Brotherhood. Sergeant Rick Donnelly, a broad-shouldered man with a booming laugh and a reputation for getting things done, was the unofficial leader of the Old Guard. He and his closest allies, Officers Miller, Sanchez, and the ever-smirking Deputy Chief Barnes, had seen chiefs come and go, but none had ever truly challenged their way of doing things. They ruled the department with a combination of bravado and intimidation, rarely questioning their methods or word. The city council, wary of crime statistics and eager for re-election, looked the other way. Complaints from citizens, especially those from the poorer, blacker neighborhoods, were quietly filed away, dismissed as misunderstandings or the grumblings of troublemakers. In the locker room, the officers made jokes about it, and their laughter echoed off the tile. "We run this city," Donnelly would say, and the others would nod, secure in the knowledge that nothing would ever change. However, as is typical, change began slowly at first. Under the pressure of activists and a new wave of city council members, there were rumors that the mayor was looking for a new police chief, someone from the outside with a reputation for reform. The Old Guard scoffed. Barnes said, his voice full of contempt, "Let them try. No outsider's going to tell us how to do our jobs." Still, there was an undercurrent of unease. The department had grown complacent, and the city was changing. Protests had become more frequent, the calls for accountability louder. There was a glimmer of doubt in the officers' rants about outsiders who don't understand the job and political correctness. Then one Monday morning, the department was summoned to the briefing room for an important announcement. The room was packed, the air thick with anticipation, and the faint scent of stale coffee. Donnelly smiled as he sat in the back with his arms crossed. The city manager and a few council members accompanied the mayor as he made his way in first. She cleared her throat, her voice steady. "I appreciate your all coming. We have been looking for a new chief, someone who can lead this department into a new era of openness, accountability, and community trust. As you are aware, I'm pleased to introduce your new chief of police, Mr. Grant Malcolm." The room fell silent as a tall, impeccably dressed black man stepped forward. His suit was sharp, his posture confident, his eyes scanning the room with a calm, measured gaze. For a moment, no one moved. A ripple of disbelief then swept through the ranks, as if on cue. Donnelly lost his smile. Miller mumbled under his breath something. Barnes' jaw tightened. Grant took the stage with a loud, authoritative voice. "Thank you, Mayor. Officers, deputies, staff, I'm honored to stand before you as your new chief. Although I am aware that change can be challenging, I have faith in both the city and this department. Together, we can build a force that serves and protects every member of our community with integrity and respect." He paused, letting his words settle. "I'm not here to tear down what you've built. I'm here to help us all do better. I expect professionalism, accountability, and a commitment to justice from every one of you." The skeptical members of the Old Guard exchanged barely concealed glances. Donnelly whispered, "Let's see how long he lasts," as he leaned over to Miller. But as Grant continued, outlining his vision for reform, body cameras, community policing, a zero-tolerance policy for misconduct, it became clear that this chief was different. He spoke with authority, but also with empathy, acknowledging the challenges officers face while refusing to excuse bad behavior. When he finished, the room erupted in polite applause, but the tension was palpable. As the officers filed out, Donnelly lingered, his eyes locked on Grant. He experienced uncertainty for the first time in many years. The badge had always made him untouchable. But now, staring at the new chief, he wondered if that was about to change. Chief Malcolm Grant quickly established his presence. He walked the Westbridge Police Department's hallways on his first full day, introducing himself to every officer, from rookies nervously clutching their coffee to grizzled veterans who looked at him with barely disguised suspicion. He listened more than he spoke, asking about their families, their concerns, their hopes for the department. Some responded with guarded politeness, others with outright indifference, but Grant's calm persistence was unshakable. He made it clear that he was not there to be a figurehead or a scapegoat. He was there to lead. Within a week, he had called a meeting with the command staff, laying out his expectations in no uncertain terms. "We are public servants," he said, his voice steady but firm. "Our job is to protect and serve every resident of the city, not just the ones who look like us or agree with us. That means transparency, accountability, and respect, inside and outside these walls." The old guard grumbled when he made the announcement that all patrol officers would soon be equipped with body cameras. "What, you don't trust us?" As they left the meeting, Miller mumbled something to Donnelly. Donnelly said, "He's just trying to cover his own ass," but his voice sounded uncertain. The new chief's reforms didn't stop there. He established a civilian oversight board, inviting respected community leaders to review complaints and make recommendations. He launched a series of listening sessions in neighborhoods that had long felt ignored or mistreated by the police, standing in church basements and school gyms, fielding tough questions with patience and candor. Even on night shifts, he rode along, walking the beat with officers and talking to residents, demonstrating his willingness to get his hands dirty. The old guard watched all this with growing unease. For years, they had operated with impunity, confident that the thin blue line would protect them from scrutiny. Now, every action was subject to review, every complaint taken seriously. Donnelly found himself called into Grant's office after a routine traffic stop turned into a heated confrontation. The chief played the body cam footage, his expression unreadable. "Sergeant, I expect my officers to de-escalate, not provoke. This isn't how we do things anymore." Donnelly bristled, but Grant's authority was absolute. "You're on notice. Next time, there will be consequences." Word spread quickly. Chief Grant was not a man to be crossed. Some officers grumbled in the locker room, complaining about political correctness and outsiders who don't get the job. Others, especially the younger recruits and officers of color, felt a cautious sense of hope. For the first time, they saw a leader who looked like them, who understood their struggles, who demanded excellence but also offered support. One of the few black female officers in the department, Officer Jasmine Lee, was invited to join the Chief's Advisory Council. "I want your perspective," Grant told her. "Help me make this department better." She accepted, her pride tempered by the knowledge that real change would not come easily. Meanwhile, the city itself was watching. Local media covered Grant's reforms with a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Community activists, long dismissed as troublemakers, were invited to the table. Crime rates held steady, but complaint of police misconduct began to drop. The mayor, initially nervous about the backlash from the rank and file, found herself fielding calls from residents who felt, for the first time, that their voices mattered. But not everyone was pleased. Donnelly and his allies began to plot, meeting in back rooms and parking lots, grumbling about the new regime. They talked about pushing back, about finding ways to undermine the chief's authority. "He doesn't know this city," Barnes insisted. "He doesn't know us." But as the weeks turned into months, it became clear that Grant was not going anywhere. He was everywhere, at roll call, at community meetings, at crime scenes. He listened, he learned, and he led. Slowly, grudgingly, even some of the old guard began to respect him. He was tough but fair, demanding but compassionate. He held officers accountable, but he also celebrated their accomplishments by attending family events, writing personal notes of praise, and demonstrating his concern for the badge bearers. For Donnelly, the realization came slowly and painfully. The badge no longer made him untouchable. The city was changing, and so was the department. And as he watched Chief Grant stand before the officers, his presence commanding and his vision clear, Donnelly wondered if it was time to change too, or risk being left behind. The months that followed were a crucible for the Westbridge Police Department. Chief Grant's reforms, once dismissed as political theater, began to reshape the very culture of the force. Previously ridiculed, the Civilian Oversight Board now meets weekly to examine body cam footage and conduct interviews with complainants. Officers who had once rolled their eyes at the idea of community policing now found themselves assigned to neighborhood events, block parties, and youth mentorship programs. Some grumbled, but others, especially those who had grown weary of the old ways, found a new sense of purpose. For the first time, The department's annual report included not just crime statistics, but also data on use of force incidents, community complaints, and officer commendations. Chief Grant made it clear that transparency was not a threat, but a tool for building trust. He held town halls where he answered questions directly, sometimes facing anger and skepticism, but always responded with honesty and humility. "We can't fix what we won't face," he told a packed church one evening, his words echoing in the hushed sanctuary. "But I promise you we will face it together." For Donnelly and the old guard, the pressure was mounting. The oversight board had flagged several of Donnelly's past stops for review, and he was called in for interviews that left him defensive and resentful. He felt betrayed by the department he'd served for decades, convinced that Grant was out to get him. Yet, as he watched younger officers like Jasmine Lee thrive under the new leadership, he couldn't help but question his own resistance. One night, after a particularly tense shift, Donnelly found himself sitting alone in the squad room, staring at his reflection in the window. He remembered his early days on the force, the idealism he'd once felt, the pride in serving his city. Somewhere along the way, that pride had curdled into cynicism, and the badge had become a shield against accountability. Now, with Grant at the helm, the shield was gone. Unexpectedly, the turning point occurred. A call came in about a domestic disturbance in one of the city's toughest neighborhoods. Donnelly and Lee responded together, arriving to find a frightened woman and her 2 children. The air thick with tension. In the past, Donnelly might have handled the situation with bluster and threats, but Lee took the lead, speaking gently to the woman, calming the children, and de-escalating the conflict. Donnelly watched, humbled by her skill and compassion. Later, as they drove back to the station, Lee turned to him. "You know, Sarge, people want to trust us. They just need to see that we care." After absorbing the information, Donnelly nodded. That night, he wrote his first commendation in years, recommending Lee for a department award. The next day, Chief Grant called Donnelly into his office, expecting another reprimand. Donnelly was surprised when Grant handed him the commendation. "This is good work, Sergeant. I know change isn't easy, but I see you trying. That matters." For the first time, Donnelly felt seen, not as a problem to be fixed, but as a person capable of growth. The old guard's resistance began to crumble. Officers who had once mocked the reforms now found themselves embracing them, discovering that community trust made their jobs easier and safer. The department's reputation improved, and crime rates began to fall, not because of harsher tactics, but because of stronger relationships with the people they served. Chief Grant continued to lead by example, never asking more of his officers than he was willing to give himself. He celebrated their successes, mourned their losses, and stood with them in times of crisis. Slowly, the department became a model for others, drawing visitors from across the state eager to learn from Westbridge's transformation. For Donnelly, the journey was personal. He apologized to officers he had wronged, reached out to community leaders he had once ignored, and even volunteered for the mentorship program, sharing his hard-earned wisdom with new recruits. The badge, once a symbol of untouchability, became a badge of honor once more, a reminder of the responsibility that came with power. As the anniversary of Chief Grant's appointment approached, the department gathered for a celebration. Officers, city officials, and community members filled the hall, sharing stories of progress and hope. Donnelly stood in the back, watching as Grant took the stage, his presence commanding but warm. "We've come a long way," Grant said, his voice ringing with pride. "But our work isn't done. We must keep striving, keep listening, keep serving. Together, we can build a department and a city that truly belongs to all of us." The applause was thunderous, and for the first time in years, Donnelly felt a sense of belonging, not just to the department, but to the city he had sworn to protect. The blue wall had not fallen, but it had been transformed, no longer a barrier, but a bridge. As the second year of Chief Grant's leadership began, the Westbridge Police Department was nearly unrecognizable from the insular, defensive force it had once been. The changes were visible not just in policy, but in the faces and attitudes of the officers themselves. The department's walls, once covered with plaques commemorating arrests and tactical victories, now displayed photos from community events, letters of thanks from residents, and awards for service and compassion. The annual review showed a dramatic drop in complaints and use of force incidents, and the city's trust in its police was at an all-time high. Grant's open-door policy meant that anyone, officer or civilian, could speak with him directly, and he made a point of walking the halls every morning, greeting staff by name, asking about their families, and listening to their concerns. The old guard, once so sure of their untouchability, had either adapted or moved on. Some, like Donnelly, had found new purpose in the department's mission, mentoring young officers and helping to bridge the gap between past and present. Others, unable to accept the new culture, had quietly retired or transferred out, their absence barely noted in the new spirit of unity. Officer Jasmine Lee, now a respected sergeant, led the department's community outreach team, organizing youth programs, neighborhood cleanups, and forums where residents and officers could talk openly about their hopes and fears. The Civilian Oversight Board, once seen as an adversary, was now a partner, working with the department to resolve issues before they became crises. The young people of the city, who had previously viewed the police with suspicion or fear, now regard them as allies. Grant's mentorship program flourished, with officers volunteering in schools, coaching sports teams, and even helping students with college applications. The chief himself was a frequent guest at school assemblies, where he spoke about leadership, integrity, and the importance of service. He never shied away from discussing the department's troubled past, using it as a lesson in humility and the power of change. "We are not perfect," he would say, "but we are committed to being better every day." The city's transformation did not go unnoticed. News outlets from across the country came to Westbridge to report on the department's turnaround, and Grant was invited to speak at national conferences on policing and reform. He always credited his team, insisting that real change was a collective effort. "It's not about one person," he told a packed auditorium at a major city's police reform summit. "It's about building a culture where everyone is accountable, everyone is valued, and everyone is heard." Back home, the department faced new challenges: budget cuts, a spike in opioid overdoses, and the ever-present threat of political backlash. But the foundation Grant had built was strong. Officers worked together to find creative solutions, partnering with social workers, health professionals, and community leaders to address problems at their roots. Residents attended public safety forums in record numbers, and the previously skeptical city council now supports the department's initiatives. For Donnelly, the journey had come full circle. He had started as a skeptic, clinging to the old ways out of fear and pride. But under Grant's leadership, he had rediscovered the ideals that had first drawn him to the badge. He took pride in the department's new reputation and in his own role as a mentor and bridge builder. At his retirement ceremony, Grant presented him with a plaque that read, "For service, growth, and the courage to change." Donnelly's eyes misted as he accepted it, the applause of his colleagues and the community ringing in his ears. As for Chief Grant, he remained as committed as ever, his vision undimmed by the challenges of leadership. He knew that the work of reform was never truly finished, that every day brought new tests and new opportunities. But he also knew that he was not alone. The department he led was no longer a fortress, but a family, one that welcomed all, protected all, and served all. On the anniversary of his appointment, the city held a celebration in the main square. To celebrate the progress they had made together, officers, residents, and city leaders gathered. Grant stood at the podium, looking out over the diverse crowd, his heart full. "We have shown what is possible when we choose courage over comfort, unity over division, and hope over fear," he said. "Let this be our legacy, not just for ourselves, but for every generation to come." The crowd erupted in cheers, and as the sun set over Westbridge, the city glowed with the promise of a new era. The badge, once a symbol of untouchability, had become a beacon of service and trust. And at the heart of it all stood a leader who had dared to believe that change was possible, and who had inspired a city to believe it, too.